BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Lauren Laverne, and this is the Desert Island Discs podcast. Every week, I ask my guests to choose the 8 tracks, book, and luxury they'd want to take with them if they were cast away to a desert island. I hope you enjoy listening. My castaway this week is the snooker player Ronnie O'Sullivan. He's arguably the greatest player in the long history of his sport, and his career is littered with superlatives. At 19, he became the youngest Masters winner in history. Last year at 46, he became the oldest winner of the World Championships, a title he's won 7 times. He's made over 1,000 century breaks, more than any other player in competition, and has held the record for the fastest 147 break since 1997, when he cleared the table in 5 minutes and 8 seconds. It's not just his wins that have earned his place in the history books, though. It's how he's played the game. His attack, intensity and flair on the bays earned him the nickname The Rocket, and his ascent captured the imaginations of sports fans around the world. But there were times when it seemed like he might crash and burn. But he kept going, kept winning, and now, he says, you're either a fighter or you're not a fighter. It's something you're given, and I know I have that in me. Resilience, courage, determination. I'll have the bad day, but the next morning, I'm back at it. Ronnie O'Sullivan, welcome to Desert Island Discs.
Thank you.
So let's start with the psychology of all this, because snooker is a sport of psychology. It's often referred to as chess with balls. How do you prepare for a day's play?
Just listen to what you said there. Sometimes I think stupidity should have been put in there, because sometimes I think I just do it. You think, why? You know what I mean? You put yourself through so much sometimes, and feeling it and observing it is 2 totally different things, which I've come to just recently see. And when I see what I put myself through, I think, like, why would you do it? You know, most people would look at it and just go, don't do it. You know. So,
what are you talking about? The pressure, the isolation, the travel?
I think it's just pressure, because if I'm playing in a room with a friend or just on my own, there's no pressure. It doesn't matter if I'm having a bad day, not hitting the ball quite so well. No one's watching, you know. But when you're pitted against another really good player, top class player, in a venue, just take the World Championship, because that is the one and only tournament really, which really kind of stands alone, you know, for the atmosphere, for the intensity, for just the nerves that it brings out in you. And it's like trying to play in that nervous state, you know, and the build-up can play tricks with your mind, and it can make you go from good form to bad form if you overthink or you freeze or you know, it just gets the better of you. So it's not a normal situation to go and do your work.
Yeah.
You know, so that becomes really difficult and something that I don't enjoy really.
And it's all about fighting against that, being in control of your mindset as you approach a game. I mean, tell me about that.
Yeah, because like, the more you try and fight it, sometimes the worse it gets. So sometimes you just have to go with it and reason with it and kind of get a different perspective on it and understand that this moment is going to pass. I know it's a difficult moment, but give it 20 minutes, give it half an hour. Hopefully I'll come out the other end and I'll be okay, you know. So a lot of it is just sort of realising that things are fickle. Once you kind of understand that, you kind of can then roll with the punches a bit more, because you're not so panic mode. You're going to go, well, it's like biorhythms. There's 2 of you in there fighting. One guy's going to have his turn, I'm going to have my turn. Can't have it all your own way, which is difficult for me to accept, because for a lot of the time I do get it my own way, and I kind of like, I have this mindset of like, if I could get everything right, I will always have it my own way. It wasn't always like that, because I remember when I was younger and I was playing better players than me, I was just hopeful that I might get a frame. So knowing that you couldn't beat someone was not a nice feeling, but knowing that you can beat everybody if you play well is like a drug in itself. You know, when I was younger, I used to feel like them periods of playing well lasted for a lot longer than they did. So when from like 12 to 16, when I felt like I was really at my best, then periods would last for like 2-3 months. Then I'd have 4 bad days. In some ways, I used to look forward to the bad days, because I think get them out of the way, because then I'm going to have another 3 months good. Then when I got to about 18, 19, it turned around. It was like I'd have 4 or 5 good days, and it seemed like I'd have like 2 or 3 months bad days. So I was kind of like in this loop of like pure anxiety, because I was spending most of my time not really feeling like I was in control.
You're very keen on physical training. That's an important part of your life. Does that help you maintain your equilibrium?
It definitely helps for everything. For me, just if I wake up and I get the trainers on and I'm out the door 7:30, run with my mate, already I'm off to a flyer. If there was a pill on the shelf and you went in there and it says, this is going to make you feel happy for the rest of the day, we'd all be out buying it. Well, that's what running does for me. It's like I go and do it and it's a guarantee that I'm going to feel fantastic for the rest of the day.
You jointly hold the record with Stephen Hendry. You've each got 7 world titles. You are more experienced than anyone in this process.
Yeah.
How much do you want an 8th?
The records never bothered me, so at one stage I was just happy if I'd got one. That was my main goal. Never thought I'd get one, so if I got one I was like, okay, they can never say I'm one of the best players to have never won the World Championship, so that was a massive weight off my shoulders. After that I always remembered how I felt, the possibility of not winning one. So to win 2, 3, 4, it didn't really matter, and I've never chased them because it was never something that I felt capable of doing.
So what keeps you coming back, bearing in mind how gruelling it can be?
I've taken time off before and it doesn't suit me. It doesn't suit me to be not doing nothing. I get a little bit bored, and a lot of the things that I love, like the running and the keep fit and taking time out, is only because I play snooker. If I wasn't to play snooker, I'd become very lazy. I won't get up in the morning. I'll lay in and, that's not good for me. So in a way, snooker allows me to do all the things that I love doing, like the hobbies. So running, go to the gym, not having a boss, being able to just decide what I want to do, where and when, is a great luxury. I wouldn't be good if I was an employee where someone said, you know what, you got to be here that day, and I had to ask permission for like days off. I don't plan anything. It's sort of like all made up on the spot, which really works for me,
Well, we want to dig into all your passions and interests, as many as we can anyway, in the time that we've got, Ronnie. And of course, the next to discuss is music, because you're going to be sharing your discs with us today. Tell us about your first choice.
The first choice was Eminem, Lose Yourself.
And why have you gone for it?
My first real turning point, I suppose, in trying to get back on track was when I met this guy called Pete Cohen, who's a really good friend of mine. He was a life coach. He was the first person for me to start looking into how to sort of make myself more optimum level thinking-wise, So he was a big music guy. And we talked about Eminem, who was just coming on the scene at the time, was massive. And it was just Lose Yourself. And it was just that one shot, one moment. And it was like, he was big on just that one shot. It was like, we've got one shot of this. And I kind of like remember that was a big turning point for me.
Eminem and Lose Yourself. So, Ronnie O'Sullivan, I want to ask you about that Guinness World Record for the fastest competitive 147 break. I watched it back the other day, and it's just the most extraordinary moment. 5 minutes and 8 seconds, 1997. And I felt like it's palpable, the atmosphere in the room becoming more and more charged as the crowd starts to realise what's happening. And you're clearing the table from pin drop silence to just absolute bedlam as you pot that last ball. I mean, when did you last watch it back?
I don't watch that one back because that reminds me of when my game wasn't in a good shape. Although I made the 147, I wasn't really playing good enough snooker or consistent enough to win the World Championship. So for me, looking back at that time, it's not a good thing, but obviously you're forced to watch it sometimes.
So hang on, an almost 30-year record that many think will never be broken, and you're looking at it thinking, I wasn't doing very well back then.
It's not an important record though. It's like one of them, like in the snooker world, what is more impressive than anything is just consistency. It's about being able to churn it out, ball after ball, match after match, becoming this like rock. And at that time I was anything but a rock, but I could do moments of magic, but I didn't want to be known for moments of magic.
But isn't it interesting that you say that, because people love that, and many others will say that that's part of your magic. But I know that you've always admired the guys who are consistent. For you, they're the kind of heroes, right?
Yeah, because when I had that 147, the guy that won the tournament, I wanted to be him. I didn't want to be the guy collecting the nice big check that they give you for the 147. I was like, I'd give all that up just to get my hands on that trophy. So at that moment, I was like, I need to be where he is. And what do I need to do to get where he is, lifting that trophy? And I need to like basically take my game apart. So I had to kind of start again and build myself into this player that could survive 17 days at the Crucible and perform under pressure. That 5 minutes and 8 seconds, it was brilliant. But I lost the next match. because I was just hit and miss. This hit and miss in snooker, or in sport in general, doesn't get you very far. The guys that get far are the ones that can maintain a high level for long periods of time. So snooker, it's not about moments, it's about long periods of time of just being good.
There's so many questions I could ask, but I think before we talk about starting again, we should go back to the beginning, back to your start when you first picked up a cue. I know that your dad gave you your first cue and got you started in the game when you were 7 years old. Where did you play? Everywhere.
My dad used to put me in the car. He'd go, right, we're going to City Road today. I'm going to drop you off. You'll be all right there. I'll come and get you later on tonight.
So he'd drop you off at the snooker hall in East London that would have been?
Yeah, so City Road was I think it was up by, not far from King's Cross.
He would have dropped you off at 7?
About 8 years of age, I'd say. So yeah, he dropped me off there, but my dad was like an East End guy, so he knew he had the gift of the gab, and he'd go in and he'd go, right, I want my boy. He'd go, well, he's a bit young to come in. Right, here's the money for him to play all day. Let him do what he wants, you know what I mean? Just make sure he behaves and just keep an eye on him.
So there'd be someone behind the bar keeping an eye on you.
Yeah, my dad used to call it a creche. He went, it was the best place for you to be. He said, I could come and do my work, but I knew you were safe. You weren't out on the streets being naughty, getting up to no good. He said, I could leave you in the snooker and go, he's all right there.
Okay.
And it was just lucky enough that I used to like the game as well. So it was a good creche.
And how long was it before you and your dad realised that you had something special? You were really good.
Him sooner than me, because obviously I didn't realise, that I could play this game well. I just used to love playing. But he was always telling people, my boy's 10 years of age at the moment and he's going to be world champion, and a lot of people come up to me and go, everyone says their son's going to be this and that. He said, but he was right. And I have quite a few people come up to me. So he obviously had big faith in me, but I never did. I don't think you can as a kid. I don't know. I hear some of these people say, I knew I was going to be this. And I was like, I never knew what I was going to be. It was scary, the thought of what, you're going to be the best player in the world, you're going to be world champion. Why me?
But did you love it?
I loved it. Yeah, I loved playing. I loved playing the game, enjoyed it, couldn't keep me off the table. Played for 7, 8, 9 hours, no problem. Just wanted to do it all the time. In fact, both my parents would make me not go to tournaments and make me go football instead.
So was it a little bit obsessive then?
Could have been. And, being in snooker halls wasn't seen as the most healthiest thing. It was a bit of a misspent youth. I know in the 80s it started getting a really, really good sport to do, but really you wanted your kids out playing football on their bike or over
fresh
the park.
Air,
Fresh air. You don't want them cooped up in a snooker billiard hall all day long, smoking, this, that, loads of older people. Because in snookers you can grow up too quick, which I did, but because you're around adults all the time, so you have to learn you mimic who the people you're around, really.
And were you lost in it? Would it be that thing of forgetting to eat?
I would order my food and they'd go, Ronnie, food's ready, and I'd run out. I would always keep my cue on the table and balls on the table and the light on, because I didn't want to lose my table and I didn't want to lose whatever was going on the table, and I'd run out and I'd scoff my food down and I'd be bumped back out on the table. And it's only now that I get people come up to me and they go, we knew you was going to make it because of my enthusiasm for the game.
You must have been a little kid playing at adult-sized tables.
Yeah, when I was 8, first time I played on a full-size table. Obviously scared by the size of it when I first see a full-size table. And I grew up just playing in a man's world from the age of 8, really. And I was competing against men from the age of 10 onwards. Winning junior tournaments from 11, winning amateur tournaments against professionals when I was 12. So you've got this little kid playing professionals that were on TV and beating them. But even then I didn't think I was good enough to be a top-class player.
It's time to go to the music, Ronnie. Your second choice today. What are we going to hear for disc number 2?
We've got Careless Whisper. I love George Michael, and the older I get, the more you kind of look back on some of his old sort of videos and some of the sort of stuff that he was saying, and I just thought he was just a genuine lovely guy who was very smart, didn't kind of buy into all what everyone else seems to buy in. He was a bit ahead of his time. Liked him a lot.
Wham and Careless Whisper. So, Ronnie, you were born in 1975 to Ronnie Sr. and Maria O'Sullivan. What were your early childhood memories growing up in Essex with them?
Early childhood memories was Eaton Road, living opposite Loxford High School, playing football with my neighbour Darren. I always remember it was fun. Do you know what I mean? I always remember the house was just full of energy, full of fun. My dad was a people's person. There was always people in and out of the house. There was characters like Shaking Ted, this one, that one, and I'm like,
Shaking Ted, any relation to Stevens? Or?
No, he wasn't. No. But it was just all these different characters that I would meet. And then when I look back on it, I think it was good times, it was good times. And my dad was sort of out grafting. My mum was home when she had my sister. So it was nice,
So your mum Maria was from Sicily?
Yeah.
And she was a good cook, I think.
Fantastic cook, yeah. I grew up just eating proper food, when I saw like home cooked food. Everything was done from scratch. Real good Sicilian pasta.
And obviously, you've described your fascination and focus at the snooker table. What about your schoolwork? What kind of kid were you in the classroom?
I was useless. I was no good at school. I used to like PE, and I didn't mind a bit of history, and still do like a bit of history. I wasn't really interested in school. I didn't really want to learn. Cooking was all right. I didn't mind a bit of cooking. I couldn't wait to get out of school, to be honest with you. I mean, as a kid, it didn't work for me, school. I'd be at school thinking, like, why am I here? I just want to go and play snooker. Mm-hmm. So my main thing was couldn't wait for the bell to ring, get my rucksack on, get out of that school gate as quickly as I could and run across Redbridge roundabout, which was a massive roundabout. And instead of going under the underpass, because if I went under the underpass, I weren't making that bus. So I used to run across the road, run across the roundabout, run across the road again. And I'd literally just make the bus, get home, and I'd get a cab and I'd be straight at the snooker hall. So my whole day was fixed around that bell going and thinking, right, my last class is here, so it's going to take me an extra minute to get round towards home, and so it was a bit hit and miss whether I'd make the bus. If I had a game of football, then I'd go, I'm quite looking forward to that.
You were earning proper kind of tournament winnings while you were at school, right? Yeah. You started winning some quite important tournaments and fairly big sums of money. How much are we talking about?
I think on average, from the age of like 12 onwards, I was probably making like between 20 and 25 grand a year.
Wow.
Yeah, cash as well. So I wasn't even paying tax in at 12, so that's the equivalent of 50. So that was just, yeah.
So would you have been earning more than your teachers then?
Yeah. And some weekends I'd come in with £3,000 and I was like 14.
How did your school friends see you, I wonder? Were you a boy wonder? Were they all backing you? Or was there a bit of jealousy there as well?
No, not really, because snooker wasn't a sport. Everyone was like football. So there was other kids at school who were really good at football and they were like the talk of the school. He's a great footballer, he's going to be this. So no one really paid any attention to me.
So you were under the radar?
Yeah, the only time I kind of got, people got a bit excited was when I said to my mates, I says, right, should we have fish and chips now? They went, yeah, we love that. I said, how much money you got? And they went, I got £1 for lunch. I went, well, how much? So we get a £5. We all had £1 each. I went, right, I'm going down the snooker club. I said, I'll turn that into 20 quid, no problem. I said, you up for it? And they went, yeah. So I went down now, and I knew him in there. I said, do you want a game of snooker? He went, yeah, all right. I said, I'll give you 14 starts, 6 reds. I got like 20 minutes to get this done. And I went, bang, 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 bang. Got the 20 quid. I went, right, let's go and have fish and chips. And they went, that was amazing. I went, well, so I got them all their fish and chips, and we walked back to school, and that was it. And I used to do that every lunchtime for my mates. So,
I mean, how old would you have been then?
Like 12. I was good. Yeah. I wouldn't have risked other people's money
fish and
unless
chips, definitely like the love language of most 12-year-olds.
Saveloy and chips it was at the time. I was partial to a Saveloy.
It's time for some more music, Ronnie. Your third disc today. What are we going to hear next?
Whitney Houston, Step by Step. In the drive from my house to the forest, I get the chance to listen to 3 songs, and this is one of them. And it's just a feel-good song, just sort of like going to run. It just gets me in the mood.
And where do you like to run?
I go over Hainault Forest. No one really knows about it, and once you get out to a certain part, you don't see a soul, and you're just out in the woods on your own, and you've got the mud, the hills, the this and that. So Hainault Forest is my favourite place to run, really.
And Step by Step. Ronnie O'Sullivan, you won the British Under-16 Championship at just 13 years old.
Yeah.
At what point did you start to think you could become a professional snooker player?
I think the first time I thought I'm good at this game was when I was 12 and I won a tournament at Barking, which was my home club, and it was a pro-am tournament, and it's all like all the best amateurs in the country would travel every weekend. This weekend it was at Barking, and the best I'd done was I think I got to a last 32, which was, I won 2 matches. I managed to get to the last 16. It was like new territory for me, and I was like, okay. And all of a sudden, my game just clicked. I was like, I played this guy and I just felt like I couldn't miss. For the first time in my life, I thought, I'm going to clear this table. Like, you give me a chance and I'm going to clear this table. There's no doubt in my mind. Do you know what I mean? And it was like, bang, long red 80, bang, long red 70, bang, long red 100. And I shook it and I'm in the quarters and I'm thinking, so I'm in the quarters now, but I feel a different player. And I thought, if I can keep this going, you never know. Bang, won the quarters, won the semis, and now I'm in the final. I'm thinking this is like fairyland. This isn't meant to happen. And I had this guy in the final who was a brilliant player, top amateur, good money player, knew every trick in the book, best of 5. He was playing well, and I beat him 3-2. And I got a cheque for like 600 quid, and I got the trophy. It was like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I'm thinking, this is unbelievable. And that was the first time in my life where I thought, you know what, I can play this game.
And was there ever a plan B after that, or was it snooker all the way?
Never a plan B, yeah. And I always can tell when someone else is going to make it, they don't have a plan B. I think once you've just got that in your head, there's no stopping you, really. And when I hear people go, oh, if I don't make it, I think you ain't making it. You got no chance. And if you ain't like fully committed, it's impossible. The only plan I had was getting that bus. That was all.
Making a bus to get to the snooker hall on time.
That was the most important thing in my life.
Yeah.
Am I getting that bus?
So in your early days, your dad was your manager, but you mentioned that he also did quite well in business himself. He ran a chain of sex shops in Soho. Yeah. Did you know about his day job back then? Did you understand what it was?
Yeah. I mean, obviously our garage was full up with dirty videos and dirty magazines, you know. I was never like sheltered to it. Like I say, Shaking Ted would come round. He was like selling the magazines, but my dad would be buying off him. You know, I'd be getting in the car with my dad going up to West End, boot full of like magazines and videos. I'd get dropped off at a snooker club. Sometimes I'd go to Soho and he'd kind of like, right, you with me today, and I'd walk around the shops and listen. I enjoyed it. It was a life experience. My dad knew everyone. Right, Ronnie, right, Ted, right. You know, he knew everyone up there. It was like we was in Bruno's Cafe, we was here, we was in the Italian deli, getting the stuff to take home. Like my dad, he was like a resident of Soho.
He was quite out there as a character by the sound of it.
Del Boy in the pawn game. Funny, smart, quite clever. Bit raw, you know. If you could have polished that up, he could have become a CEO of any sort of company, you know, but he wasn't privy to that upbringing or that education, but he had that desire, he had that forward thinking, you know. He was up the West End, there was no one better. He said, I don't care what you say, it was the best business in the world. He said, I used to wait till every midnight, he said, they used to have to drop the wages off. He said, I could tell by the FUD on the floor if they'd had a good day or a bad day. He said, because if it was a good day, it was a heavy bang on the floor. And that's all he used to wait for. So in the end, he didn't really work. It was just sort of like delegating, and you know, he must have had about 30 staff, 40 staff at one point.
I can see it in your eyes how much you adored your parents. Yeah. But did you have a sense that it wasn't an average job? Let's say it wasn't a kind of normal job that they had.
Not really. That's all I was brought up in. You know, it was like a bit of a, how can I say? It's like it was a bit like a bit of a mafia. You know, the empire. Like my dad used to work for a couple of guys who had all the shops up the West End, and they were the big bosses, and we used to go around their house every weekend, and they'd have these big ass swimming pools and Rolls Royces and this and that, and we'd turn up in a little Fiesta XR2, and that was good for my dad. Bought their house, but he was just an employee, and then one day they got closed down, and they was like, oh, we don't want to take the risk, and my mum went, you get back up there and start, you know, open your shop up, and he went, really? And she went, yeah. So he got up there, got his first shop, and I helped him kit it out in Berwick Street, I think it was. And then within 2-3 years, he was snapping up every shop up there because he was on time with his payments. He was 3 months ahead. He went, there's 3 months ahead. And no one wanted to pay their rent, but he was like, you know what, your money's up front. You know, he ran a good operation.
Let's go to the music, Ronnie. It's your fourth choice today. What have you gone for?
We've gone for Deacon Blue, Real Gone Kid. Me and my dad used to do a lot of travelling up and down the motorways when I was a kid. And I remember he got out on Bow, and we were driving the very next day to a tournament, and this song came on, and yeah, we both got kind of emotional. He was out on Bow, so we never knew what was going to go, but I just remember, listening to this song, and it just reminds me of that time, really.
We'll talk more about what happened to your dad in the next section, but for now, let's hear it. Blue and Real Gone Kid. So, Ronnie O'Sullivan, in 1992, you were 16 years old, you turned professional, and then later that year, your father was jailed for murder. He served 18 years in prison. What do you remember about that time?
I remember my dad getting out on bail, coming to see me in Blackpool, because I just started out as a professional. I was literally in Blackpool for 3 months, and I won 74 out of 76 matches, and I literally played every day. And on the final day of qualifying for the World Championships, which was my last match, my 76th match, I travelled home the next day to my granddad's and was sat in the kitchen, and that was the day of the verdict. And that's when we got the news that it didn't go well. I could tell by my uncle's face when he come in, like seeing a ghost. oh, this ain't good. You know?
So he got a phone call?
No, they was at court. I wasn't at court. I was just in the house, but my uncle was there, and I could just tell by his face that it was bad news, you know. And then it wasn't until I spoke to whoever was with my dad at the time. She said to me, like, it is like 20 years before he even thinks about coming out, you know, that's minimum. And I was just doing the maths, 16, 20, 36, you know. Like,
it feels like forever.
Yeah, it's too
at
far
that
away
age.
to even get your head around it, you
Yeah.
know. So that was hard, because there was no, like, hope in a way, you know. You thought, well, there's nothing really to work towards. It was just too far away to even...
Contemplate.
Well, it's decades, isn't it? It's 2 decades, you know. So, yeah, that was hard in a way.
Yeah. You said you felt like you lost your spine when your dad went to prison.
Yeah.
He was obviously, he'd been managing you, he was your coach, your driving force, my idol, you said. I mean, did you think about giving up?
There was a point where I said, look, Dad, you know, I'd rather just run the shops. I enjoyed doing that more than playing snooker, you know. It's kind of like, I thought I can do this and have a bit of a life, whereas snooker, I'm just going to be up at snooker every day, potting balls. And I was like 17, 18, and I just got a little taste for sort of driving, being independent, and thinking maybe there's a bit more life than just playing snooker. And he was like, no, you're not doing that. You don't want to be in that game. Snooker's the best thing for you. This is it. Don't get it. I was like, and I really fought against it, to be honest with you. But he wouldn't let me.
Why wouldn't he let you?
I don't know. I still think it might have been a better thing for me in a way.
Do you think he saw snooker as your way out of his life?
Don't know, maybe he thought I wasn't cut out for it, you know, like the West End was a different ball game. And then when I think about it now, maybe I wouldn't have survived up there, because it took a certain type of personality to be able to survive up there, you know. Maybe I was a bit too naive to be a success up there. Maybe he thought I'm better off in the world of snooker. And I think in hindsight I made the right decision. But you just never know.
So you must have felt really adrift without your dad. How did you approach continuing, and where did you, like you say, you'd been in the car together, driving to matches, doing everything. I mean, like, you were on your own at that point, I guess.
Well, it became more about not letting him down, not letting him feel responsible for you know, if I mess up, he's surely going to feel like it was his fault. And I know that's how he felt. So it became like it wasn't an option then to foul. It's like I had to keep going. I had to keep trying to sort of, you know, to win in tournaments, really, because at the end of the day, that was the only thing that was going to kind of like balance it out, really, in my dad's mind, you know.
And was there a sense that you playing was keeping him going while he was in prison?
Yeah. I mean, he said that to me. He said that, you know, like, I always knew a visit was important to my dad. You know, and I'd visit him once a month, no matter where he was. And then he said to me, like, we've got tellies now. He says, I'm watching you play snooker. I was like, oh, great. He went, every time I see you on TV, it's like a visit. And I thought, oh, I can't stop now.
That's
You know
a
what I
lot
mean?
to take on emotionally, isn't it?
Yeah. So
It's a lot of pressure.
do you think so?
I think so.
I
Well,
don't
especially
know.
because wasn't he not allowed to come and see you play? Because you could like feel him in the room when
Yeah,
you were younger.
I stopped watching. Yeah, that was that time at Barking when I first won my Pro-Am when I was 12. About a few months before that, I'd started getting some better results because he wasn't there.
But then now you're in a situation where you know
Yeah.
that he's watching you all the time. That's quite a lot.
The TV didn't bother me because I thought as long as I haven't got to have him sort of like telling me off. It was like, why did you play that shot? What did you do that for? And then I was scared to play the way I wanted to play because I thought I've got to play the way my dad wants me to play, which never worked out. I always got beat. He'd say, do this, do that, do that. And I'd do it and I'd get beat and I'd go, and he went, why'd you do that? I went, well, you told me to do that. So I was like, and then once he realised him not being there and I could play with freedom, it was fine. So just not having him, like feeling him. You can watch, love him watching. You know, now I kind of like, you know, as long as he's not in the building, it's fine. On TV, not an issue.
You're a dad. You've got kids in their teens and
Yeah.
coming up to that age.
Yeah.
Looking back, it must have been incredibly hard for your dad to not be in your life at that time.
Oh, yeah, it was horrendous. It was horrible. It was horrible. It's like I lost my best mate. I lost my backbone, you know, someone that kind of like, you know, I wouldn't have gone off the rails, put it that way, if he would have been out. I know that for sure. I just couldn't have done it. I just wouldn't have come home. I wouldn't have wanted to have to face him putting me in my place. I just wouldn't have wanted it. So it would have been a complete no-no. And people around me wouldn't have even attempted to do that. They'd have said, like, got Big Ron to answer to, like, leave him out. Do you know what I mean? But once my dad went, it was like, you know what? There was no one there to protect me in a way. And I'm not saying that I was led astray. I was always the one instigating it. So a lot of the time, people around me go, "Oh, he's no good for Ronnie. He's no good for Ronnie." I'm thinking it weren't him asking to get. It was like me ringing him up to go out. So I was like, I was bad.
I mean, I want to talk about what happened next and the kind of risky behaviour, but also it feels like, there's an element of anger there, isn't there? Sometimes when kids, maybe that they can't express. I wonder if there was part of you that was just really angry about
I
what happened.
became angry, yeah. I became pretty anti-establishment in a way for institution and for authority. And I never was really. I was always quite, just happy to get on my snooker, do my thing, and that's all I wanted to do. But then it became a bit like planting seeds in my head, and then I would sort of like, he was having his fight in there, so then I had to have my fight out here, and we were both had something in common, like, yeah, you doing it, I'm doing it, yeah, we're like, forget them, it's us against them. So I built up this sort of anger, if you like, and become a bit, just lost the plot, I suppose, really.
Ronnie, I want to come back to all of that, but first I think we'd better take a minute for some more music. Your fifth choice, what have you gone for, and why are you taking it to the island?
Carly Simon, and it's You're So Vain. And the reason why this song stands out for me was because I was 15 when my dad first got nicked for the murder, and my mum thought it was a good idea to get me out to Thailand a little bit earlier, hoping that I wouldn't hear about my dad, and at the time I came home, Dad would be home. It never happened that way, so my mum phoned me up, told me while I was in Thailand what had gone on, and I remember there was 3 songs on repeat mode in my hotel room, and this was one of the songs which sort of sticks in my mind,
Carly Simon and You're So Vain. Still tough to listen to that.
Yeah, a little bit, obviously takes you back to that time and stuff like that, but yeah, crazy,
Ronnie, you were the youngest player to win the Masters snooker title, just 19 years old when you did it. But just a year after that, you had to somehow balance looking after your younger sister as well, because your mum had to spend a few months in prison for VAT fraud. She'd been looking after your dad's business while he was in prison, so you had both parents in prison. How did you manage everything?
That was the point where I kind of like, it just went from 0 to 100 overnight. Once my mum had gone away, it was like I had no one to sort of be accountable to, because she was another one that I knew would be so disappointed in me if I'd come back drunk or I'd started smoking.
So she was quite strict then?
She was, yeah. When my dad went away, she was the next person that I didn't want to let down, So it was kind of like I wanted to be there for her and make sure that we both got through it. Together we were stronger. That was my mindset. By her going away, it kind of like left me on my own. And then by the time she come out, it was too late. The damage, I was already off and running. There was no stopping me.
So you had to look after Danielle, your little sister.
I tried.
And obviously it was just too much.
Couldn't deal with it. I was already then drinking and partying and smoking dope, just hanging around with people that wasn't really good for me, really.
So who stepped in? What happened?
I moved to Liverpool by mistake. There was never like any intention to go and live in Liverpool. I just was on my way to Preston, got some fella some tickets who lived in Liverpool to come and watch me in Preston, stayed at his house, got comfortable. I spent like nearly 2 years living in Liverpool. I felt like I had friends. I felt like I go down the snooker club. Everyone was just I fitted in more down there than I ever did in London. And I still do in a way. I still feel happier up north of England than I do down at the south. Did you feel safe there? Yeah, I felt safe. Yeah, it was a different type of safety. I didn't have my family. I had a good network of friends. I actually met people my own age that were sensible and smart and that were like, I felt safe hanging around with. A lot of my friends down London, they weren't my cup of tea. I wasn't good at choosing the right people. When I went to Liverpool, they were like, this is Ronnie, keep an eye on him. And then I was introduced to really good quality young people that kind of like, I felt safe around. They would say, look, not now, Ron, not this, not that. Whereas in London, it was like, yeah, whatever Ron wants to do, we'll do it, So usually I gravitate to older people. I don't know why. But it's like I'm looking for that father figure. Maybe growing up in snooker halls as well. Maybe, yeah. That adult company. Yeah, exactly, yeah. It was so, for me to hang out with people my age was a good thing for me, Yeah. As you mentioned, that there were, things that started to kind of spiral, behaviours that began to get worse. I think addictive behaviours that took a few different forms. What kind of thing was happening? Well, food was one. So I stopped the drinking, stopped the wacky backy, got into food, but didn't know it at the time. But it was just kind of like it was just like another form of numbing whatever you was feeling.
Yeah.
But when you haven't got an awareness, you just kind of do it, you know. And then I came home and my mum was like so disgusted in me, that amount of weight that I'd put on. I lost my driving licence and I trained every day, 3 times a day. So I'd run in the morning, gym in the afternoon, gym in the night. And I lost about 3.5, 4 stone. And I was the fittest and most healthiest I'd ever been. And that was, again, 3 times a day.
Another addictive behaviour.
Another addictive. So it wasn't until I went to the Priory and I started to realise about addiction, because I just thought, they was going to teach me how to stop at 1 or 2 and this, and I was going to be, you know, I was going to gain control of it. And once they sort of said, like, if you're an addict, you kind of never really gain control, you know. When it comes to drinking, it's complete abstinence. And I was like, what? Like, never again? Like, I just couldn't get my head around it. So I know now that addiction can run rife in me, and it can be in anything. You know, so I have to be careful about what I kind of... Some things I indulge in, and it's brilliant, you know, like over-exercise. And the worst things that can happen to me is that I'm a bit knackered for a couple of days and just need to sleep it off a little bit and just eat good food. That's not a bad sort of trade-off. But
So you've had to learn to choose your poison a little bit.
yeah. I don't know what it's like to not have an addiction and be able to go, I'll have a bit of this, a bit of that, a bit of this, a bit of that, and, you know, have a great balance in life. But I don't feel like I have that ability to do that. I can recognise it and kind of go, well, I won't do this, I won't do that, and I'm much better at sort of taking on what's healthy for me now.
You've written about your life several times, including looking back and reflecting on it for your latest memoir, Unbreakable. Some of your behaviour was really self-destructive, but also self-sabotaging. And I wonder whether it was a relief to get help, a relief to be in rehab and say, I just can't manage this, I'm out of control.
You don't even know when you're self-sabotaging. I mean, I got clean and I was still sabotaging on the snooker table, but I just didn't know that I was doing it. And it wasn't until someone made me aware of what I was doing that I kind of like, I understood it. And it's
so
like,
this is
okay.
walking out of matches when the pressure gets too much, or
you know.
And
so many ways where I'd quit, and, you know, I'd go back to my room after losing a match that I thought I was better off losing because I wasn't feeling it. And then I'd get back to my room, and an hour later I was like, I actually feel like I wish I'd have won that match. I wish I could have had a chance at the next guy tomorrow, you know, but I've ruined it.
Ronnie, it's time to go to the music. Your 6th disc today.
My next song is Stereophonics, Maybe Tomorrow, and it was a band I was introduced to just before I went into the Priory. So I was getting myself clean, listening to Stereophonics, thinking, yeah, this guy's really good. And then I think it must have been about 9-10 minutes later, after coming out of Priory, I found myself at a party and I was a bit off the wagon. And Kelly was there, and I was like,
Kelly Jones from the Stereophonics was
and
while
I
you
was
were.
like,
wow.
So it was a bit of like 9 months ago. I was clean listening to you. Now I'm like, I'm off the wagon for the first time, and it's like, how did that happen?
2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah.
And Maybe Tomorrow. Ronnie O'Sullivan, you've got a number of interests these days that help support your mental health and your mindset. And I think some listeners might be surprised to know that one of them is painting. You're quite a keen painter. And one of your closest friends is the artist Damien Hirst. How important is that friendship to your well-being, and what sort of painter are you?
I'm not a drawer. I can't draw to save my life. But what Damien gets me doing is he does a lot of dots, so it's sort of like he
did this quantulist thing.
Yeah, he has these massive canvases, and he was like, "You can do this." And I was like, "I ain't got a room big enough to put a canvas like that." And you've got like pots of paint here, which like, and he went, "No, you should just get a little piece of paper, and you just get smaller pens, and you just do it on a different scale." And I was like, "Really? You know what? This is good for me. This is good. This is getting me in a nice place. I'm like, I'm with my friend. I'm here with him. I don't want to be anywhere else. I feel safe." We stop for lunch, we have a lovely bit of grub.
So you love what he does, and that's, brought something wonderful to your life. But you met because he loves snooker so much, I think.
Yeah, no, he loves the game.
Do you ever think the balls might be a bit of an inspiration for the dots?
Could be. Yeah,
Who knows where these ideas come from?
Exactly.
You're the world number 1, Ronnie, and the player who everyone wants to beat. How do you deal with the ongoing pressure to stay at the top of your game?
So for me, it's always being open to learn and kind of becoming a better player. I think I'm a better player now than I kind of ever have been, because I don't rely on just one thing. I've kind of got 3 or 4 different options of surviving within a game, and at any point I can switch, which just took time. to get the job done, I need to be firing on all cylinders, which is scoring breaks at a quick, rapid speed. And then when I'm doing that, I'm a dangerous sort of opponent. Yeah, just learning, basically, just learning to be, just a better player. That's what sort of excites me, really, because I think I spent a lot of time struggling and trying to work it out, and now I've kind of got to the point where I've improved, but it's sort of like, how long can I keep it going for now? It's like, I don't want to, I've worked so hard to get there, and it's like, now I just want to like make as much hay as I can and enjoyment, because I suffered a lot with it, and I've learnt to not suffer. So it's about more pleasure now,
Ronnie, it's time for your 7th track. What's next?
I went for Train, Drops of Jupiter, and I'd pick my kids up from school on a Wednesday, and they never liked any of my music. And I was like, can you put this on, Dad? Put it on. So I put it on. And then one day I said, hey, listen to this song. And they listened to it and they went, no. And then they both really liked it. So I was like, cool, I've got a song here. And they just used to put it on repeat. And they would play it and play it and play it. And then once we were doing a cooking show, and they said, we've got Train here, Drops of Jupiter, playing. And I was like, really? My favourite song. And I got to meet Pat and that, and it was a lovely guy. And there he's my walk-on song as well. So it's sort of like the kids meeting him, lovely guy, love the song, good song for me.
Drops of Jupiter for your kids, Ronnie Jr. and Lily, Ronnie O'Sullivan. So how far ahead do you plan with your playing, Ronnie? I mean, do you know whether you'll go for an 8th world title at this point?
I think I've got maybe, if I want it, 3 really good years, but that depends on whether I'm fully devoted to it and kind of like go, right, snooker's all I'm going to do for the next 3 years, which I can do, but it's really hard to do it when you sort of like think, I want to do a few days with Jimmy White as a pundit, I want to go and do a few exhibitions, I want to go and do a few shows, because they're fun. But I can still perform, I can still be a top 8 player doing that, but to really fully become, like, give yourself the best opportunity, it's about like just being like totally on it, and it's whether I'm prepared to do it. And I think I will this year. I think I've decided. You've got a bit of a twinkle
in your eye. Yeah, I was just going to say there's an expression.
I think last year's World Championships wasn't a good tournament for me. I was really gutted at how I played. I wasn't disappointed I lost. You lose, But the way I played, I wasn't happy with that. And I think I want to try and put that right and come back a different player next year,
Well, Ronnie, it's time now to cast you away to the desert island. How do you feel about the challenge? Do you think you'll be able to keep yourself happy in your solitude?
On the desert island? I think I would. I think I would sort of enjoy the outdoors. I never done cubs, or what do they call it when they were young? Scouts, isn't it?
Scouts and cubs, yeah.
But I learned that they said we teach them how to set a fire and this and that. And I would love to sort of experience being thrown on somewhere and gone, right, got to survive.
This is it.
Like Bear Grylls.
You're on the right show.
So that is something I'll quite look forward to, yeah.
So you'd embrace the challenge. Do you think you'd be good at the practical side, the lighting a fire and building a shelter?
I'd learn, yeah. Because I had a canal boat and my mate used to have his fire on. I'd go on his boat, oh, that's a good fire, you've got to go in there, Paul. And then he'd go, well, you do this, you do that. And I'd go back to my boat and I'd do it. And I'd go, Paul, fire's not going like yours. What am I doing wrong?
Paul's not going to be there, you're on your own with this.
So he'd come round, Paul, and he'd go, right, you got to do this, you got to do that, and I'll do that, and it was roaring. But I could never quite get it right. But it's because I was there for a few days and then I was gone for a couple of months. But once you kind of get into it, you can learn to do anything, really.
This is it. You're going to be in the deep end, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
One more disc before we send you there, though. Your final choice today. What's it going to be?
Genesis, That's All. I used to hear this a lot with my dad in the car. He was into Phil Collins and all that sort of stuff. And I used to, again, go into the running, going to Hainault Forest, which is about a 12-15 minute drive from my house. I would listen to Step by Step with Whitney Houston, and then the next song was Genesis, That's All. And that was just sort of like a right good feeling song. And I used to, by the time I finished listening to that song, I'd be ready to get out of my car, meet my mate, and I'm like, yeah, I've had a good morning. The drive was good.
Genesis, and That's All. So, Ronnie O'Sullivan, I'm going to send you away to the desert island. I'm giving you the Bible, the complete works of Shakespeare, and you can take one other book. Which will it be?
Running with the Kenyans was my favourite book that I ever read. It was one of the first books that I had to stop reading because I didn't want it to end. And I just kept flying through the pages, and I just thought the book got better and better. And the writer was an amazing writer anyway, so it's quite like every book he read, I like his writing. So I'd definitely take Running with the Kenyans with me, because I think that would just take me to a place where hopefully one day I get to experience what running with the Kenyans is like.
So, Running with the Kenyans by Darren and Finn. You can have that. I'll also give you a luxury item to make life more enjoyable on the island, or for sensory stimulation.
Yeah, my dots. Yeah, that would be something that would get me through times of, what am I going to do? Oh, I know what to do.
So you want your paints?
Yeah, take my paints, yeah.
Okay, talk
Yeah.
me through it. What do we need? Like, are we talking watercolours, acrylics?
No, nothing too watery, because otherwise you don't get the texture. It's got to be a thick, bang it on there, texture, solid, takes a while to dry, but once you've covered a few little parts of it, you plot it up and then you get onto the next canvas, and eventually they all sort of like, you can keep working on them all at the same time. So for me, it'd have to be thick, heavy paint on a nice canvas background.
Oh yeah, we can do that for you. The island's going to be, your first exhibition space. And finally, which track of the 8 that you've played us today would you rush to save from the waves if you had to?
Genesis, that's all. Genesis has kind of like just come back into my life just recently, probably only about 6-7 months ago, and it's sort of one of them that I forgot how good it was, and then you listen to it and you're like, wow, why wasn't I listening to that way long ago, So it's sort of my go-to on my playlist.
Ronnie O'Sullivan, thank you very much for letting us hear your Desert Island Discs.
Thank you. Cheers.
Hello. I hope that Ronnie's happy on his island, painting, maybe doing a bit of running there too. We've cast many sports people away over the years to our island. They include snooker players Ray Reardon and Steve Davis. You can hear their programmes if you search through our Desert Island Discs programme archive or on BBC Sounds. The studio manager for today's programme was Jackie Marjoram and the producer was Sarah Taylor.